Welcome to Let's Talk Higher Ed Careers, a podcast from HERC Jobs. I'm Marcia Silva, Marketing and Communications Director at the Higher Education Recruitment Consortium, also known as HERC. This show is designed to help you explore, launch, and grow a career in higher education. We are starting a new segment called Higher Ed Pulse Check, where we break down the latest poll and survey data on working in higher education to unpack the trends and challenges shaping the sector's future. Each episode features a rotating panel of guests representing a wide range of experiences and perspectives across higher education. Today, we have Daniel Butcher, one of our regional directors, and Jennifer O'Neill, another regional director and program manager for the National HERC office. Welcome, Daniel and Jen. Could you both share a little bit about your background and experience? And Daniel, why don't you go first?
Well, I often joke that I started in the mailroom because I was working on a campus and I'd gotten really tired of working for several years on my master's degree. And so I had gotten a job in a campus mailroom. And one day they said, "Hey, we have a job upstairs as an advisor, and we think you'd be better doing that than being in a mailroom." And I had also had some experience with things like financial aid and teaching. And so moving to advising wasn't a big deal. From there, eventually, I wound up being the coordinator for that entire program, which was a distance learning program that was back when distance learning consisted of sticks and rocks. And then eventually that led to an even bigger career in academic affairs, where I was basically being a team leader across the university, being in charge of things like compliance, policies and procedures, working with our executives on our mission and vision and new offerings. And then, 4 or 5 years ago, because time has no meaning, I became a regional director here at HERC.
Cool. Thanks, Daniel. Jen, how about you?
Yeah, so my path through higher ed has been anything but linear, which I think is pretty common for a lot of us in this field. So I've worn a lot of different hats over the years. I've been a full-time faculty member. I've been an adjunct faculty member. I've been an academic advisor. I have served as a community college trustee. I've worked across different institutional types, community colleges, R1s, R2s, and as a result, it's given me the opportunity to see higher ed from a lot of different angles, a lot of different perspectives. So, I've seen it from the classroom. I've seen it, so I know what you're doing when you're focusing on teaching and student success, and I've seen it from the student support and advising side. So when we're helping people navigate systems that are often incredibly complex, but also hugely transformative. The governance side, you're thinking about institutional priorities and policy and long-term sustainability and succession. And now with my work through HERC, I spend my time focused on the higher ed workforce kind of itself. So, how institutions are recruiting or supporting their employees, how they're developing and retaining all of the people who make all of that work possible. My background is as a sociologist, so that perspective as a social scientist has stayed with me through my entire career. I'm always looking at the relationships between individual experiences and the larger systems. So that's a big part of the way I approach the research we do here at HERC, including our National Workforce Survey, where we are looking at questions around employee engagement and career mobility and workplace culture. And really what I enjoy most with the research and with this position that I'm in right now is being able to connect the research and data to practical action. So my kind of kaleidoscope background allows me to dig into what people are actually experiencing, identify those patterns, identify trends, and translate that into strategies and resources and conversations that can help higher ed better support their employees and strengthen their workplaces. So that's me, and that's why I'm here.
Well, thank you both again for being part of today's conversation. We are focusing on this topic. Is a career in higher education becoming less attractive? Tough question. If you follow HERC Jobs on LinkedIn or get our monthly e-newsletter, you'll already know that we regularly post polls on LinkedIn. So I'm going to review some of our recent polls related to this topic, get our panelists' answers, and then hear what they think of the final results. So let's get started. So the first poll question we're going to look at is this. Overall, are higher education roles drawing more appeal to job seekers or less? Your options are more, less, or about the same. So, Daniel, what do you think for
So
you?
this is me totally shooting from the hip here. I'm going to go with about the same. And the reason is because I think it's highly situational. I think there are positions that I think about some of the ones that I had in the past in academic affairs team roles, academic advising, just a lot of roles where there's a multitude of different degrees. Again, Jennifer and I are both been academic advisors. I have a history degree. She has a sociology degree. There's just openings for some of those positions where we've got multiple educational backgrounds to fill those roles. There's also an increased chance that some of those roles, especially with today's technology, are going to be more hybrid and online friendly. And if we've seen anything from being at job seeker events, the moment you say online, you instantly get a lot of interest from job seekers. But I also know that there's a lot of research jobs, a lot of technical jobs, even jobs such as bus drivers and facility staff that right at the moment in the past, it may have been more appealing to work on a campus due to some of the benefits that we've historically given as campuses, where now jobs in industry may be competing with us just a smidge more when I talk to our members. So again, right at the moment, I feel like it's a mix. So I'm going to go with pretty much the same.
Okay. All right. How about you, Jen?
So I'm also going to say mixed, but with a little bit more kind of strain on that mix. I feel like I've had a peek behind the curtain, and I know from our own data that the confidence in higher ed has declined for a lot of job seekers and a lot of people who are currently in higher ed. But the interesting thing is that we still are seeing a lot of people who want to be in higher ed. So it's, I think it's some of it is current policy issues. Some of it is salary compensation being not as competitive with our kind of industry cohorts. But higher ed itself hasn't lost its core appeal. It's people who are in higher ed are very mission driven. They know why they're there. They know why they want to be there. And so I think that we're going through, we're always going through change in higher ed. But I think right now we're just in a moment where it feels like everybody's kind of holding their breath and waiting to see what happens next. And I think the thing that is really important for us to remember is that while there are always going to be issues that we can address, again, people still want to be in higher ed. It's still a good place to work. It's still a place that is often exciting and challenging in the best way. And I think those things aren't going away.
Right. Okay, so let me share the results. So actually, 76% said less appealing. 15% said about the same, and only 9% said more appealing. So now that you know that, and I think that's the difference, Jen, you mentioned like people still want to work there, but that's almost like a separate thing, right, from being appealing. So it's kind of like, I want to work there, but I don't know if it's as appealing as it was maybe 5 years ago. But anyway, so your reactions to that, to knowing that that huge percentage actually said less appealing, like what's going on?
May not help that you've got lifers over here.
We're a skewed data pool over here.
A little bit. That's bias. So
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because I didn't have a higher ed background. I mean, I was like a student worker back when I was at college, but I didn't really do higher ed after that. And I joined HERC during COVID. And as you all know, in that period, even to today, the higher ed has been, in terms of just like everything going on in the news and changes and budgets. So yeah, I don't know. If you asked me, right, someone who's fairly new, I mean, if I had known, I know, I like wonder if I would have like, I definitely want to go there, like, or it's kind of like that. Okay, I'll just kind of see how it goes, and I don't know yet. I don't know yet if I'm a lifer. But I love, there's so many things about higher ed that I love. And obviously as someone who did work as a student worker too, and seeing the aspects of working with students and working with staff, I still remember it fondly. So yeah, it's just kind of a strange time, especially if you recently joined, because I feel like it's been very, very, just a lot of stuff going on. But yeah. All right. Any
I'm
other
gonna
comments?
lean into hopefully that it's more about people who happen to be on LinkedIn and they were cranky that day about work, and they were like, absolutely not. Maybe they had a lot of meetings, something. But I
Yeah.
do think, again, that's one of the kind of fun parts about doing the stuff that we do, because we get to see from this vantage point where we're kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and we get to help the people on the inside kind of right the ship. That's yeah. We'll get the people who are not confident back.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what we're working on. Okay. Second poll question. How do you feel about the stability of higher ed careers today? So the options are less stable than before, about the same as always, or more stable new opportunities. The stability. How do you feel about it?
You're gonna trick me with this one, Marcia. I know for a fact that this one is less. It's got to be less. And I've been around for a while, and I can remember when getting a campus job was, in some of our communities, we were the biggest employer. In some of our communities, we had some of the best benefits. And, the goal, if you were in the community, was to get a job on our campus. And because it could help with family education benefits. It could help just be stable because that university or college was always going to have students coming to it. And now I worked food service at one point. I can remember when I worked food service, like the adults that were there held those jobs forever, and they were never going to change those jobs. And now those full-time adult positions are ones that are really being held by folks that are also considering jobs in places like fast food, because of the fact that the benefits might be a little bit better. And so I'm going to go 100% with less, especially when one of those benefits used to be we had things like tenure and we didn't really experience things like layoffs. And that is definitely something that we have experienced in the last 2 to 4 years. Again, less. You can't trick me, Marcia. No tricking.
I'm gonna concur with Daniel there on people feeling more shaky about the stability in
Yeah.
higher ed. I mean, we know that higher ed's always had the issue of people feeling like they have to leave their institution and come back in order to advance. So we knew there's already some stumbling blocks there, and especially with, again, like succession planning, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So I think with that added kind of layer of the uncertainty and kind of the tumultuousness of the current moment, yeah, I'm gonna say people are feeling a little less certain, and I'm gonna hedge with a little.
Okay. Just, yeah. All right. Well, here are the final results. So, okay, hold on. 79% said less stable than before. 14% said about the same as always. And 1% said more stable, new opportunities. And then we had 6% say unsure. But yeah, that's the spread.
So I will say that having been on the governance side of things, and anybody who's ever been in any sort of leadership role, really at any level, I'm hoping some of those respondents are people who aren't quite sure that there's always craziness behind the scenes. There's always that everybody looked like a duck, right? We look placid on top of the water, but underneath the feet are just a kicking. And I think that for people who have been in that governance seat before, I'm not going to say this is like it has like that there's an analog for this at any point in the recent past, because there really isn't. But that uncertainty, that kind of rapid turnover of information, that's nothing new. So I think I would encourage anybody who is listening to this right now or watching this right now, who is a little like, you got a pit in your stomach now about higher ed. Just know that there is always something going on behind the scenes that kind of the rest of the team may not know about. But those people who are in governance roles, hopefully, are prepared to handle these things. And if they're not, we'll help them get there.
There's a lot. At times in the past when we've had uncertainty, it's often tied to enrollment trends. And if we know anything, in many cases, enrollment trends do go up and down. And enrollment trends can go up, especially geographically or situationally. You can't see campuses, oh my goodness, even at a position or two. So.
Yeah, I was hesitant to say this, but well, we'll see how you guys, just the impact of AI. That's, I mean, right? Like that's another thing that everyone I think is trying to figure out what to do with it, right? And if it's really gonna replace humans or enhance, sort of our activities or whatever. But does that, like, how do you feel about that? Does that have a place in this kind of the instability that people are feeling?
I think it feeds it, honestly. But I think kind of on the flip side, and you know this because I've said this kind of in the HERC world many times, we try not to bring problems unless we have solutions. And I think that the AI piece, if we can shore up the career pathways and give people a little bit more certainty on the career trajectory side, they would probably be a little bit less freaked out about AI integration because they would know this is the role that I'm looking for, this is the path that I'm on, and this is how AI can supplement. Because I think some of that fear is just the unknown, and it's not just the unknown about the AI, it's the unknown piece about their specific career pathing. So I think that if we get stronger there, we can kind of offset some of the AI nerves. And I also, well, AI itself could be its own podcast. But yeah, I think there are some ways that we can both address and offset some of that fear. But I do agree that AI is definitely a part of that.
Just don't know how AI is going to impact a job or a campus or even impact their work. And I can remember 15 years ago being on a campus where we talked a lot about a data warehouse, with the idea of being, you're going to have this data warehouse and it's going to have all our SIS information in there and all our business information in there, and we could query it. And it wasn't necessarily an AI. It was probably at that point a sophisticated spreadsheet search, to be honest. But that was the idea, is you would have this data warehouse where we could find out trends and we could analyze, and we were going to be able to do it more quickly. Where one of my kids made the point to me one day, all an AI is, Dad, is just a search engine for all the internet. And that's kind of the way I've treated it, is if I need an idea starter, if I need some information fast, I will use an AI. And will it at times save me time? Absolutely. I sent Jennifer an email yesterday that had a response to an AI prompt to it. And the thing is I shared with Jennifer the entire AI prompt, but I also, because I believe that, again, we're analyzing, we use our brains and our minds, it included me saying, here's the prompt. This is what I liked about it. This is what I think works. This is what I would change if we were to pick from these sorts of responses in and out. Especially since I know for a fact that AI hallucinates so hilariously.
Welcome.
Yeah, AI is going to change things, but yesterday it made my job in communication with Jennifer just a little bit easier because I didn't spend an hour sitting down trying to brainstorm. I just asked it to give me some steps.
Yeah, I think that clarity, again, that the understanding that it can provide can absolutely be a tool for higher ed. And I think if there are any faculty listening here, they absolutely are familiar with how much kind of input you have to put in because I think we've all received those assignments that actually, in the body of the text say something like, I am an AI bot and cannot generate original thought. So job seekers, don't do that. Don't leave that in your resume or your cover letter. Make sure you're checking. You do have to tailor things still. But yeah, I think AI can definitely be used to make our lives easier, our work lives easier. And I think that it does, because of that kind of fear of the unknown. There really is that fear, and it kind of adds to that larger pot of things that are causing uncertainty in higher ed right now. So we gotta get in front of it, make sure people are comfortable and confident in what they're doing.
All right, we've got a couple more poll questions. Here's the next one. Would you encourage a young family member to pursue a career in higher education? Yes, no, or unsure?
So I'm sitting here thinking to myself, is it me or the poll?
You.
In me, okay, so for me, the answer is yes. Now, in my household, one of my children is a new professional who was seeking out their first job in the last year and a half. And I did encourage them to apply to the local community college due to the distance, due to the educational degrees that they had, and due to the type of work that it's a very mission-driven young adult, and it was very mission-driven work. So I did encourage them to look to the community college. They didn't interview at the community college, they didn't take a job at community college. But again, it was at least, and it wasn't their preference, but it was also a good fallback position at the very least, as they were looking for their first quote unquote real job.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would definitely encourage a young family member to go into higher ed. Even with the uncertainty, the mission-driven piece, that knowing that when you're going to work, you are doing something that is going to have an impact on other people in a positive way, that's huge. And I'm the type, I'm just kind of geared towards, if it's not something that I can really kind of sink my teeth into and be passionate about, probably not the job for me. And I think that, yeah, again, even with the uncertainty, I would absolutely tell, I've got nephews and nieces who are on the job market. I have sent them her jobs out of work. Because it's a workplace that's entirely different from anybody else. And I will also jump on the community college bandwagon, because if higher ed is mission aligned, community college just distills that down even further. It's a really fantastic way to make a positive impact and a positive contribution directly in your own community, in a really tangible way. And I think that we cannot know what kind of the future job market's going to look like, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. And the skills that you can pick up in these roles in higher ed really provide you with a kind of on-the-job socialization, on-the-job education that I don't think you're going to get really anywhere else, because you have such exposure to so many different ideas and so many different kind of subject areas. You get to soak it all in.
Yeah, great for those lifelong learners, people who just want to continuously learn, and just the access is great. But yeah, okay, well, the results aren't as dire as the other ones, I can happily say. But still, so we've got 36% said yes, 48% no, and 16% said unsure. So,
I do wonder if maybe some of the respondents are looking at the word education instead of the word higher education.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm going to be honest, I come from a history of family members who are pre-K through 12 teachers. And I do know that in the last 20 years, that situation has changed severely when you talk about support and resources and capability. Where I will say, with my kids who have looked at that family tradition, they ran away from pre-K through 12 education because of just what they saw amongst family members. But again, as higher education, we're also working with a little bit older population, a population that has made choices about being there.
Mhm.
So even if we've had some resources taken away, at least we are working with populations that generally think it's good to be on our campus. Versus, I don't want to be here because I'm just required.
I'm gonna actually read a comment that someone left on the poll, just to see someone who actually has well, let me just read it. So someone wrote, in fact, one of my children works in higher ed. They are 26 and working in a library, overseeing the circulation desk and work study students. Side benefit, they are getting their MLS from the top school in the US for the sub area they want to study for free and counts towards their 10 years of public service loan forgiveness. They now have almost 4 years of the 10 in the books. Sometimes it isn't about the cash up front, but the benefit. So I thought that was a nice one.
Absolutely. When
Yeah.
people are talking about salary, because we say salary, but the HR world, when we're talking about compensation, it's not just that amount of money that you're getting paid. And I think people often kind of miss the forest for the trees there. That you have the public student or public service loan forgiveness aspect. You have the potential to get a free degree. It's there are so many kind of hidden benefits or intangible benefits. Well, they're really tangible, but you kind of don't know about them until you're in the club.
Mhm.
So still keep coming to the club, because if you were looking for that little bump, you can get it there. You can find you can get certificates. It doesn't even have to be, you don't have to go with a bachelor's and go straight into a full master's. You don't have to go into a PhD. You can just grab, micro credentials on the way. And we have, and when I say we, higher ed in general, we do invest a lot in educating our workforce in different ways, because again, lifelong learners, that's the environment. I love that comment, because that's really something that I think everybody should know about and kind of keep in perspective. It isn't always just that number on the check.
Mhm.
The number on the check is important, but there's a lot of other stuff that kind of sweetens the deal.
Yeah. Well, that kind of is a good segue to our last poll question, which is, what do you think is the top reason why people leave higher education for other careers? So the options are pay difference, lack of advancement, better work-life balance, or tired of leadership. So what do you think is the top reason people leave higher ed?
Ooh.
It's like, oh, I want to jump on that one.
There are three of the four, but yeah, Daniel sees it. It's that one.
That is what I think all of our campuses suffer. And I think we have spent a lot of time as a set of workplaces trying to figure out better ways to define career paths. Because I know for a fact that there's at least twice in my career that I realized the only way that I was going to go forward is if somebody retired or left. And so that you're literally rooting for someone, let's say to your boss, could you please leave? It's time for me to advance. Could you please leave? And sadly, at least for me, you come to a certain point of just kind of making mental accommodations for why you're not leaving when you may not advance for a good long time. I think at one point, in order to advance me, I had a college make up the title that had never been used before on anybody, because it at least sounded more like a promotion for me, even though I still do the exact same thing. So I mean, that's one that I think we all very much know and is there. Now, I recently worked with an intern, and when you talk about being tired of being frustrated with leadership, I have worked for a lot of different leaders. I have worked very closely with CEOs and presidents of campuses and board members. I want to be honest. I may have worked close with them. It's not like they impacted my daily work. Where there's some that I agreed with and some that I didn't agree with. It was always my team leader who had more of an impact on me than leadership. So that one, but I also know working with that intern that I had this friend, she was someone who's very concerned with mission and values and visions, as someone who's just coming into the workplace now. For me, I had a bigger consideration, which was the money. Money, again, as an adult who has bills and responsibilities and mortgages, and kids who, as I've often said, kids who want shoes, money is important. When I say they want shoes, I mean they want to be able to wear shoes. Because again, we all have basic needs. You know, even if you're not like, oh, I need this wild thing. No, we have needs, and money is the currency of being able to purchase those things. So for me, it's money.
All right.
I'm thinking about all the summer camps I just paid for. Yeah, the money. In order to be able to do something, anything, you've got to have the money to do it. I also think salary is the primary driver. And again, that leadership piece and leadership at that team level. It's the people who impact your day to day. Kind of like when we think about the political system, it's, you know, the federal government impacts us to some degree, but it's that state and local that really impacts us. And I think that when you have, as Daniel was saying earlier, leaders or people who are just kind of staying in those positions, because people do stay until, I mean, sometimes people just stay until they're told maybe you should go. But I think that the conversation really has to shift a little bit. And I know it sounds strange coming off of the back of me saying, like, yeah, there are all the intangible pieces. But I think it's time for us to have the conversation about, we've got to look at salary, because that's the conversation constantly, is that, well, salary, we can't really do anything about. We've got to figure out ways to have that conversation and to find some dollars, because it is more expensive to have that attrition, to have that turnover, to have to hire new people, to lose institutional memory. And I think that that's not as much a kind of a part of the equation for leadership as it should be. And so if we want to stay competitive, if we want to make people feel like higher ed, yeah, you can build a full career here, we really do have to stop kind of saying, well, we can't have the benefit, or we can't have the salary conversation. We need to focus on other things. We have to have the salary conversation. We just do.
And I think there's a problem. And again, it's a bigger education conversation. I think we hear it even more at pre-K through 12, which is, you knew what you were getting involved. You knew what you were signing on for. And you knew you were going to sign on for these low salaries, and instead you get to have education benefits, or you get to have quiet summers. None of my campuses that I'm working with are having quiet summers in. You get to have this, so you just know that the salary piece is something. And I think there's just kind of this assumption that we're just going to be here forever as campuses, and we're going to get paid whatever can be left over and paid. And in my second year in higher education, I learned really, really quickly we didn't get paid, because I literally got a 0.5% wage increase. And I was told that it was really good. And aren't we lucky? And so there is definitely this assumption that we're going to be there no matter what.
It's the remember your why.
Yeah.
And why doesn't pay the bills.
Yeah. If anything, I think for many of us, that phrase is now triggered, because it's not just remember your why, it's remember your why and stay in your place.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a question that we have to address. I've been very excited because I can remember when I was leading teams, we had conversations about salary studies, but they never launched. Now, in the last 2-3 years, I've talked to many of our campuses. You could probably go into HERC Connect if you're looking at this yourself and say, does anybody have experience with this? I've seen a lot of salary studies lately, competitive salary studies, where we've seen our HR partners, our talent acquisition partners make very large and meaningful presentations that are basically saying, we want to keep our best people. This is what it equates to in other industries. And some of those have been successful, some of those sadly have not. But again, I think it's one of those things we're beginning to think through. And again, just to plug HERC Connect, if you're looking at having one of those journeys yourself, probably a good place to put heads in. They got experience on this. As a question, I'm sure somebody will come.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to bring it back to the leadership, because you both kind of made that comment of like, it's kind of more like your direct managers or supervisors that matter more than like the top level people. And I just get this vision of them like shielding you, right? They're shielding you from that craziness that's happen up there, and then how that connects to the burnout, right? So it's like those mid-level folks, right? That's where like how do we retain those folks who are so important to keeping the staff, right? So anyway, I just like the vision of the shielding, because that's really hard. And what that does to your mental health. And I feel for those people who are really fighting the fight at that big level. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I think everybody can kind of hopefully come up with one or two people at least that have been their supervisor, their team leader, that they can say like, I really learned something from them, and they take it with them in the rest of their role. I think it's probably easier for all of us to come up with leaders who were not in that particular pool. And I think we really have to, those people who are doing the shielding, the ones who are good at it, are so good at it. Karen and Anne, if you're watching this, you know who you are. You're amazing. Obviously, Jessica, Carrie, yes. But the real piece, I think we also have to find ways to support those folks as well, because they realize that they're doing the shielding and they're getting that kind of compression from the bottom. What does their team need? And then what are they having to kind of filter out and deal with from the top down? And my hat really goes off to those kind of mid-level managers and those mid-level supervisors. And this feels very organic. I promise this wasn't a setup, but as we go into the fall, as our survey results come out, that is really a population that we are focusing on providing support for. Because, man, when we did the member survey, that was a loud signal. Our mid-level folks need support. They need the help in order to really support the people below them. And let's be honest, as they're supporting the people below them, they're also supporting the people above them by keeping everybody kind of moving and keeping the ball rolling, while the people in those more kind of like governance oriented seats focus on dealing with all those other changes.
They're the diplomats, right? Like they kind of have to keep it level. They have to keep their cool and keep everyone happy. And it's just stressful thinking about it.
In that position is I was the negotiator. I was the honest broker, because I was sending communication both up and down, because again, academic teams, I didn't do the work, but I had to make sure that my team could do the work and have what they needed. I also did not make the decisions, but I had to translate them into ways that directly impacted them. And again, there are days where you feel great because those communication channels are going up and down. And then there are days where it's just, you're being advised. As you may have a team member saying, we can't do this because of a system piece. And up here, well, I want to do this because of mission and vision. I used to have a fan conversation that I had every 18 months where I'd have a university president come to me and say, I want to do this thing. And it's like I could have just copied and pasted from an email that had been sent 18 months earlier that started with are you willing to spend money? Because the system and the staff can't do it. And anytime you ask that question, unless you're willing to commit money, the staff are not going to do it.
Yes.
Manual work becomes the word that you do not want to start throwing at them. So,
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, the final results for this question on this poll was 48% said pay difference is the top reason why they leave, followed by 24% that said tired of leadership, 15% said lack of advancement, and 14% said better work-life balance. So I think that kind of lines up with what we were thinking. Um, well, thank you guys so much. I think for our first attempt at doing this, this is really great. So, thank you again, Daniel and Jen, for being part of today's episode. If you're exploring, starting, or growing a career in higher education, visit hercjobs.org for job opportunities and career resources to support your next move. Join us next time on Let's Talk Higher Ed Careers for more real stories and practical advice from across the higher ed community. Thanks, everyone.